And a story in the New York Times this week sent something like shockwaves through Washington, D.C. and the think tank community. The organization New America Foundation discharged the leader and an entire group of an organization known as a unit known as the Open Markets Initiative, run by Barry Lynn, author of the book Cornered. Joining us now is Matt Stoller. Matt has been on the program before. He is a writer who covers the issues of monopoly power, market structure, industrial organization, and until recently was part of the New America Foundation. He continues with the Open Markets Initiative, and he joins us now to talk about recent events. So first of all, Matt, thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Secondly, so what the hell happened? I mean, what we've heard, we've read the New York Times story. It says that Google, which has given a lot of money to the New America Foundation, was unhappy with some of the criticisms of its monopoly position coming out of your team, the Open Markets Initiative, and basically that the president of New America told Barry that he and the group would have to go elsewhere. Is that correct?
So what happened is, so it's a very classic story of how power actually works in America. So there's a sort of small community of policymakers and thinkers and writers in DC that are funded through these institutions called think tanks, which are sort of quasi-academic institutions that have foundation funding, funding from individuals, funding from corporations. And they're supposed to be independent researchers who write scholarship on a whole variety of topics, and often that scholarship is then turned into policy by both federal, state, and local governments. And so one of the means by which, the economy and our political system gets rigged is through the financing channels of these think tanks. It's sort of opaque, it's out of the way, it's not directly talking to government policymakers, but it is kind of laundering influence. And in this case, you saw a pretty, what's unusual about what happened with us, and it was in the New York Times story, is that it's not that it happened, it's that it was so obvious that it happened. So Google, essentially, our belief is that Google, this is what conversations that Barry had with Anne Marie, who's the head of the think tank. This was in their conversations. Google was just upset with the fact that we called them a monopoly and said that the European, that when there was a legal decision handed down against the monopoly, there'd be monopoly power in Europe. We said, hey, that was a good decision. And 2 days later, we were told we had to leave the think tank. And so this is a very good example, a very explicit example of how powerful interests, and it's not just Google, although Google is the most powerful one or one of the top ones, but how power really works in Washington and why people are so angry with what they're getting out of their government these days.
Well, you said something important, I think, Matt, that I want to go back to before we talk a little bit more about what happened with the Open Markets Initiative, and that is that this happens all the time and that it's not usually so overt. I think about this a lot, the extent to which the people who are supposed to be coming up with the new policy ideas to make our world better self-police. They police themselves to make sure that they don't offend the people that fund them or that might fund them in the future. Is that more or less what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's right. And the thing is I don't want to give the impression that it's all pay to play, because it's not. There's, the key is to have a diversity of funding streams so that if one entity cuts you off, it doesn't, you can survive or thrive anyway. And we're going to be fine. We are starting our own independent tank. We have funding. We're bringing our foundation donors over, and our research has been really effective. And that's why the Democratic Party has started to adopt antitrust as a central plank in their 2018 strategy and their 2020 strategy. It's why Republicans are talking about it. It's why it's one of the reasons that you're seeing actually a worldwide move to look at corporate concentration. So I don't want to be like, oh, everything is terrible and everyone is bought. No, we're not bought. And the fact is there are good people who are willing to stand up and say, no, we won't be bullied. And this is this is a story both of Google trying to intimidate us, monopoly power trying to exert itself, but also their failure to do that, and the fact that the bullies don't always win.
Right, and I do want to get to that part of that in a second. I just want to make sure that the listeners understand the story, and then I do want to talk about it, about how the bullies don't win, how this story might demonstrate that and even help that process along. But just to make sure that everybody understands, there was this very striking sequence of events. Your group and the head of the team, Barry Lin, put out a statement applauding the European community for fining Google for its monopoly position. 2 days later, this process began of separation. Anne-Marie Slaughter, head of the New America Foundation. Now, in response to the criticism, Anne-Marie Slaughter said that in the interests of transparency, she was going to release some emails. Well, I don't know if she selectively released emails or not, but what struck me about that, Matt Stoller, is that she thought these emails somehow made her look better, but when I read them, they seemed to confirm to me everything I'd always been troubled by about how this system works. She's basically saying you won't play along with us, so you have to go. But I've never thought that the role of the scholar or the researcher was to play along.
I mean, yeah, it's sad because, we have a lot of respect for people in New America, have respect for Anne-Marie Slaughter, and it really sucks to be in the position that she's in where, concentrated financial power are putting pressure in a way that makes them make, bad decisions. And, I feel really, I feel bad for her. Like, she's a scholar. She shouldn't have to be put under these kinds of pressures by powerful moneyed interests. It's really too bad. And New America's a great place. There are a lot of great people that do important work there. So we wish it hadn't happened. Like, we didn't think it was a good idea for them to do this. We've been there for a long time. But yeah, we want to make it clear that, and also it was weird for them to release the emails because they thought that those emails exonerated them for some reason, which was strange because it showed that in their thinking, everything was about, their relationship with Google. And that just shows just how captured a lot of think tank, a lot of people, policymakers can be when they're just when money is so powerful and so concentrated. They don't even realize that it's captured how they think about the world, and that's just a sad situation.
Right, that was my takeaway too, and now let's sort of pivot to going forward. So you guys are going to be okay, right? And that's good news. My sense after 24 hours of this was that this could actually be a really positive development in terms of the conversation about monopoly power and about tech companies in particular, technology companies and their monopoly power. I actually thought that this became kind of could become kind of a teaching moment around those issues. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think this is the start of something really powerful. I mean, it's a really good way of explaining an opaque world that's important, and people don't really have access to it. Clearly, Americans and people all over the world are angry about corporate concentration, but they don't know who to point fingers at. They don't know how the system works. And our job is to educate them, and this is a really good opportunity to do that. And it's not the last opportunity that we're going to have to educate people about these problems. These problems crop up in kind of every crevice of our political economy. But this is a particular, we are proud of the work that we've done, and we think that our effectiveness, that this speaks to the effectiveness of our work. Otherwise, Google wouldn't be suppressing our opinions if they could beat us just by debate. I mean, our ideas are good. That's why they're trying to suppress them.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. And so in a perverse way, it's kind of an endorsement. And one of my last questions is this. Just for fun, have you tried to see if anything odd is happening with search results when people Google yourselves or the project?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that last. Can you repeat that?
Have you tried to Google your own project to see if the search results are being manipulated?
No, that's funny. That's a funny idea. We haven't, we've been like talking to reporters and trying to figure out how to build a new organization. So we haven't gotten to that yet, but that's a funny idea.
Maybe I'll try it when the show's over. And so last question, Matt Stoller, where can people go now to find out about the work the team is doing?
Where can people go to learn more? Is that what your question was?
Yes.
Okay, so we're an organization. We're still called we're still called Open Markets. We haven't put up our website yet, but if you want to get on our list and contact the CEO of Google and say this is what you did is not okay, you can go to citizensagainstmonopoly.org. We've set up a small campaign site there just to let people email the CEO of Google. So that's citizensagainstmonopoly.org, and we will be in contact with you about how you can learn more. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'm at MatthewStoller. That's Matthew Stoller. And I tweet out lots of information about monopolies.
All right, sounds good. So Matt Stoller with the Open Markets Group, formerly a unit of New America Foundation. Thanks for your good work, and thanks for coming on the program.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
You bet.